Welcome to the Community ROI podcast. Here, senior community experts, founders, and C-level managers tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how community impacts business growth. By listening to these conversations, you'll get actionable steps on how to connect community goals with business goals to skyrocket business growth while still bringing extreme value to community members. And my name is Yurii. I help people and brands shine through communities and personal connections. And my guest is Whitney Marin, a customer experience and community design professional with nearly a decade of practical experience working on engagement, adoption, and long-term member value of community-led organizations, who truly believes, I hope so, that connections thrive through intention, systems, and structures, and great experience don't just happen, but they must be designed. So, welcome, Whitney.
Thank you. That was an amazing intro. I appreciate it. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
It's all about you. It's your experience. You're here. So I will ask you all the questions that I want to learn myself. And let's start with the easiest one. So, first of all, what is one community activity that you enjoy the most and why?
Yeah, so this year I've changed my scope a little bit. I've been with my company for about 4 years now, and I was working in customer success previously, and now I'm just kind of to the side of that in customer experience. And so this means I get to design new programs. And one of the programs that I've been working on this year is called Peer Unlock. And the intention is to bring together our customers in a room to connect with each other and learn from one another. And I think it's the best way to kind of have that firsthand experience of what it's like to use our product and really leverage it for your community goals and your business goals.
What is the business goal behind this Pure Unlock program? Because you told that the best way to help people to leverage your product. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, so there are definitely pure product training where you just want to know the nuts and bolts of how to use the tool, how does it work, how do I get the most out of it for my goals. But then there's the more experiential part of it, which is how is my community doing compared to the industry? How is it doing compared to peers? There's a huge question of benchmarking that comes up because people want to understand if they're doing the right thing, if they're on the right track. And so this really gives our customers a space to exist. It's pretty low stakes. They can connect with each other and really just unearth what it means to use the tool, but also what it means to build community in the current age that we're living in, especially with AI, all the different features that we have coming out over time. It really gives a place for people to um, just kind of take stock of everything and kind of not get overwhelmed with all of the things that are possible. And so for the business goal, it's really about building that affinity and also allowing customers to have an experience that makes it feel and makes it, I guess, known that we are a company, but we're also a group of people and we really care about our customers, about their communities, and about them as individuals and community builders, not only as customers. So for me, I think it's really integral to digital engagement, which is the kind of team that I'm in. And digital engagement can really be um, automations and it can be things that kind of happen behind the scenes, but it can also look like programs where people are connecting with each other in person, but it's still in a digital format.
Sometimes it's hard to put a price tag on the care part because, like, like people like, yeah, I remember like some time ago, around like 5 years ago or something like that, when I just came in the international community world, I was like very motivated by the sense of belonging. And I was like truly sure that you cannot track it, that you have no way to, there are any metrics around this. You just feel it because community people were feeling things. So I'm curious, like, still, what's in it for, first of all, what's in it for your customers? Like, what's in it for them? And secondly, are there any metrics that you track?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's in it for the customers is really, I've seen these aha moments where they're like, oh, just because my community is this size or engaging this group of people, I can still see that through line of experience through other community builders with different types of communities. So it's a wave of recognition that they can have and feel less alone in their work as community builders because as we know, community building is bringing people together, but at the same time, it can also feel a little bit lonely and isolating because you're doing that for other people. And so this is a space for community builders to connect with each other. So on that end, I think for customers, it's really an opportunity to highlight the work that they're doing and also have recognition in that. And then the things that we're measuring are really just kind of, we're at the beginning stages. So it's really those core metrics of who is coming to the sessions, how often are they returning, and what are their key takeaways from those sessions. So we're just measuring conversion from registration to attendance and also the, I guess, yeah, what they're getting out of those sessions.
Are you reusing somehow the content that you might get out of this? Like why I'm asking, because when people are talking to each other and then they're coming back to the like general group and then they're sharing some insight, as you said, some aha moments that they got. Do you create some kind of blog post or articles around that, or like what do you do with it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think for us, it's really important that A, the customer kind of has a closed loop. They come to the session, they get a follow-up email with everything that was discussed in the session, all the links, things that they can use to take their work forward. And then internally, we want our account managers who manage all of the customers that are coming to these calls to be able to really say, hey, my customer attended a peer unlock session, and this is what they got out of it. This is a great way for me to continue the conversation and my work with the customer on the account side. So maybe that means that they could be looking for this type of support. And so the account manager is able to get that information back through our internal systems. And so that's the infrastructure that I've been able to build is A, the curation. So how are we identifying the customers that should be invited to these calls and really supported in these calls? And then the second part is how do we make sure that information gets back into our systems and available to the rest of the company so that they can use that information to better serve our customers?
Is there a way that you've already connected or maybe thinking about connecting this insight, the signals that you get from your customers to the revenue or maybe to retention, like any business metrics that connected, right? Like maybe saving money or making money. Because once again, like everyone is talking about community, about like feeling the sense of belonging, but at the end of the day, it's a great engine for business growth. So I'm curious, how does it work in your case?
Yeah, that's also really interesting because this is exactly what we're working on in terms of creating more holistic understanding of our accounts and our customers. So essentially, the health score was kind of the big thing that was happening on a lot of these CSPs, so customer success platforms. And it allowed us to really have a lot of aggregate data and pull it together and have a one number or one figure that represents the health of a customer. So now, on the other hand, we want to do the same kind of concept, but to talk about the impact that we as a company are having on the customer and the value that they're receiving. But this is also coupled with where they are in their community maturity. So if the customer is more in the earlier stages or in the later stages of their community maturity and growth, that means that we are approaching them in a different way and we're making sure that they have access to different resources and things that are relevant for them at their stage. And then we can roll this information up into higher level reporting that we can then use to overall understand the customer better and track how they're moving through their experience with us as a company. So that's something that we're working through right now is really figuring out what are those signals, which ones are the most relevant to really pull into the larger picture of how we're thinking about the customer and how we want to help them and work with them. And so it's a big topic. And I think health scores are also really great. But I think, as you're saying, maybe just like pairing that with something that really speaks to impact and revenue as well is kind of that key touch point that we're looking for.
You told about community maturity, and I feel like it's very, very important things that many people are really missing out on because like they treat all community members as equal. And as you said, someone might be on the only in the beginning of their journey. Someone might be already like experienced professional and they just want to know how exactly the tool works. They don't need all this extra knowledge that, for example, an UB must would like to meet, might to listen, to know, to get this information about. And I'm curious, how do you track it? Like, how do you put your customers into different segments? Do you have some kind of a survey that you send to them when they join the community? Or maybe you have this personal one-on-one conversations, or maybe it's something else. Like, how do you do this?
Yeah, so I've created something called the Hybrid Community Lifecycle Framework.
Hmm.
And the idea is that customers are completing a 10-question quiz. And I don't know if you remember kind of like those magazines from back in the day that kind of like sorts you based on your questions. It's kind of one of those quizzes that really just asks you some questions that don't necessarily seem like they would sort you to the right thing. But at the end, you have a result. And this tells you, okay, based on these things, you're kind of in the inception phase or you're in the growth phase of your community journey. And so they can use those quiz results to access resources that are relevant for their stage. And they can tackle these things with their teams. They can take it back and say, hey, like I've discovered that we're in the inception phase. Like we thought we were maybe a little bit further along in the growth phase, but we still have these key concepts to nail down so that our community can feel like it's progressing and there is momentum over time.
How did you build it? Why I'm asking, because like identifying a person when you have one-on-one conversation, it's very pretty much easy to understand like what level person is. But when you don't know this person, when you send them some kind of a survey or like the system that you talked about, you have to ask the right questions, and then you have to have some kind of a scoring around those different questions to understand that person and people exactly fall into specific categories, not just randomly assign them to different tiers. So how did you build this?
Yeah, so for us, it was really important to understand what are the key areas of community building fit within each category of growth. So, what does an inception stage community truly look like? What are those activities and concepts that you want to make sure you're nailing down in that early phase? And then the second piece is really understanding that all of this is actually quite fluid. So you can have a community that obviously starts maybe in this inception phase and then reaches an area of maturity over time. But maybe they have a whole new segment that they introduce into their community and they kind of fall right back to inception because they have to work on these same concepts for that new segment. So just making sure that we are taking into consideration the different stakeholders within a community because the community manager is not the only stakeholder within the community. And then also making sure that we're looking at this at both an end user and I guess account level. So the end user is, so our company and the way that we work is B to B to C. So we engage with our community managers and their community managers engage with the customers who use our tool and our platform. So it's quite multifold, and we wanted to make sure to have that really well considered in the structure and framework. And therefore, it's really based on the different activities that exist in the phases and then kind of weighting how they responded to the questions and where they are in their kind of how they're tackling those kind of fundamental things. So if they say, if one question, for example, is, how far along are you? Well, the question is more detailed than this, but basically, how far along are you in your community strategy? Have you thought about your value proposition? And if they say, yes, we've thought about the value proposition, that would be potentially question A. And maybe question or answer D would be, yes, we've thought about our value proposition and our members are telling it back to us.
Hmm.
Like these are different ways that you can see or measure the evolution or growth of how far they are along on this particular topic.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so much helpful when you have this information because you actually know how to talk to different people. Because sometimes the mistake that I see in different communities that people are speaking the same language with all the members, and like it's close to impossible because people are in different journeys of their life, and when you are feeding the same thing to all of the people or asking them the same question or giving them the same answer, like some people will definitely appreciate it, but it's just one cohort, it's just one group, it's just one part of the whole community. And you can have the whole multiverse of members in your community and the whole multiverse of different journeys. And it's super important. And thank you so much that you mentioned that because once again, people are really forgetting about it. So let's imagine this. So you have your, let's say, someone in the very early stage of their community journey, and then let's imagine you have like some senior expert with 10 years of experience. So what would be the difference in your communication between those two categories?
Yes, so the quiz really helps you decipher where the categories, where the customer kind of fits within these categories, and then they get directed to resources that they can use and take back to their team and kind of workshop these things. It doesn't exactly say, hey, because you're a senior leader, you're going to get a different set of resources. It just allows you to really take the material and say, hey, as a community manager, this is the one that we're going to tackle right now. Maybe when we're done with this worksheet or we have a final result, then we're going to take that conversation to a senior leader and break it down for them so that we can have a better conversation around the topic. So it really is through the lens and interpretation of the community manager because that is who we're serving in our customer community. But we want them to be able to have the opportunity to communicate well about their community, what they're doing, how it makes an impact. And these tools give them the language to really do that, and also the ability to kind of speak to a bigger picture of, hey, like we're in this stage of the journey, this is where we're going, and this is where we are now. And I think having that context and that language and that framework really allows them to have a better appreciation for where they are and also knowledge that, it's a journey and it doesn't take like 1 month to launch a community. Maybe you launch the community in a month, but to grow and sustain and to have a thriving community, it does take some time and investment in these different areas.
I have this personal question about the quiz creation because it's something that I had on my mind for a long time ago. And I remember those quizzes in the magazines and online when you
Yeah.
like, what other animal are you? Or like, what kind of a flower are you? And I really loved them. I like actually, like, it was a long time ago, but I actually went through all the quizzes that I found. And it was amazing to get to know that I'm like a wolf or whatever. Anyway, so talking about quiz creation, once again, personal question. Where do I start? So let's imagine I have a community of freelancers. They're on different journeys, they're in different niches, in different specifications. How do I create this quiz?
I think first you really just start with what is the end result, and then you can work your way back with the specific questions. So if you know there may be like 3 to 4 categories where you see people ending up at the end of the quiz, whether that be uh, different phases of the life cycle or different animals or whatever it is you're looking to do, you kind of map your questions to those different phases. So you're saying somebody that is likely to be like this would have these kind of answers or these kind of criteria. So you make sure that, yeah, it's kind of a full circuit and they can answer the questions and kind of route themselves to the right place. But in terms of quiz creation, I use Typeform and I think it's a great tool to be able to create such a thing because they just have a lot of routing and like conditional logic in there that you can set up so that it's not as pure as like all A's equal XYZ or like all B's equal this. It's like, no, kind of really considering the holistic set of questions and weighting them and then giving scores and then attributing people to the right place based on all of the answers, not just kind of a small subset of answers.
You reminded me like a long time ago, I was working as risk analyst in the bank and I was doing the scoring system for counterparties, banks, and insurance companies. So I kind of get it, how it works. It was a little bit different. It was not about what kind of animal are you, but very similar in creation. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing this starting from the end because I clearly missed this point because I was thinking, like, what question will I ask first? Like, what question will I ask second? But then, no, start with categories and come back. And you also mentioned very interesting thing in the beginning. You told that you are coming from customer success team to customer experience team. So, as a community professional, what is the difference for you personally between working in these different teams?
Yeah, I'm sure people might have different opinions just because I think maybe this has changed over time. But for me, customer success is owning accounts and working directly with customers and having that one-on-one relationship. And in some companies, digital customer success, that can be a one-to-many relationship. In customer experience, however, you're really working on the overall flow and kind of customer journey and what does it look like to exist as a customer in your ecosystem. So that can be from the onboarding stage, that can be through the customer community, that can be even on the back end for us. Like, how is the data flowing for this customer, and how do we know information about this customer? So for me, I think it's a really great transition to automations, to AI uses, and also just a way to understand the customer more holistically to continue to design and optimize for their experience.
Sounds to me like you are getting a little bit away from one-on-one conversations, but you are still creating this like the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a great way to really expand your relationship with customers and kind of serve more customers at once. But it also allows you to still have those personal touch points, at least for me, within the community work that I'm doing.
Communities can have different goals, and hopefully, in the best case scenario, all the goals are connected with some business goals. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but hopefully yes. And I'm curious, what is one goal of the community you're working with at the moment, or maybe something that you worked before that inspires you the most?
Yeah, I guess I'm coming back to this Peer Unlock program. It's been my recent baby, and I think it's a lot of fun to work on. And it really allows me to understand what are our customers really thinking about? What are the biggest challenges that they're having? Because even though I've created different themes for the sessions for Peer Unlock, you find that some people are coming to all of the sessions with the same question, but kind of phrased in different languages to kind of meet the session topic. So at the end of the day, you realize, okay, this is kind of a either a pain point or something that everyone is kind of experiencing at the moment. And it helps you to really see more like cohort or holistic customer data based on what is coming into the sessions, as opposed to in that one-on-one relationship. You do have many one-on-one relationships, but you don't necessarily get to see that like large of an arc. And I think for me, that's quite exciting, and it's quite a great way to be able to tackle different challenges and problems that customers may be having.
You already mentioned that they are usually asking about the benchmarks and how do I compare with other communities. And I'm still curious, what are the top three questions that they usually ask?
So the topics that we have for the Peer Unlock sessions are focused on member engagement. So how do you engage your community? Admin engagement. So how do you make sure that you're optimizing your use of the platform with the tool and making sure that it's doing what you need it to do. And then the last one is community ROI, actually. It's not called that, but the essential uh, tool is, or the essential goal of that session is, what are the metrics that I'm measuring, and how do I tell the story of my community to leadership and to stakeholders that are asking me, to show results for my community. So these are the three session topics, and sometimes I find that people come to different topics with similar questions. So maybe they're all asking about engagement, but maybe they're using language that feels like the answer. How should I say this? So let's say they come to the community ROI session and they're really asking about engagement, like, oh, what should I do and how should I do it? But what they really want to know is, how do I show the impact of my community through success metrics? Like, what are the KPIs that will really tell the story of my community? So once I can see all these different questions coming in and what is being asked, I have the opportunity to say, okay, like actually you all were asking the same question, but in different ways. Or you're asking maybe three different questions, and this is how we can tackle it with like one way. So it's a great way to really have that holistic understanding of the customer base.
Yeah, and it's so nice to know that people still care about community ROI and then they thinking about how to deliver the data to leadership, to stakeholders. And if we are already here, like from your experience, what is the best way to connect community data? Okay, let's divide it into two questions. First of all, what community data to track? And secondly, how to deliver this data to leadership, who is not a community person.
Yeah. So data to track, I think it definitely depends on your community maturity. So where you are in the process. I would say if you're quite early on in building a community, the most important metrics you want to really think about are returning members to your community and what is actually getting them to come back to your community and log in. We all know that there's so much going on. There's social media, there's all these different tools and things that people can be connected to. And so there really is competition for attention. And so if you have been able to capture your members' attention, you really want to know why and you want to know how. So just measuring, even without thinking about the exact names of the metrics or like what they look like and where they are in the platform, just having that mindset of, why are my members coming back and how? And so really just tracking that in the way that's relevant for your community, whether that be returning members or a popular event that keeps getting attended, and maybe the other events are not being attended, if people are really active in the forum. So just being really in tune with how your community is using the platform or the whatever you're offering. And then communicating that to leadership should look both quantitative and qualitative. So you should have opportunities to give quotes and share stories of people that are existing in your community, but that should also be coupled with some harder data, like, okay, this is the number of people that are coming back, this is the number of people that are registering for these different things, and this is the number of the ratio or how this has changed over time. And having that over time metric also really gives you an opportunity to have it be a long form story with potential for growth later as well. Like, this is where we started, this is where we are now, and this is where we're going. And being able to tell that story is really powerful in a way that I think if you can master this and kind of present this to stakeholders, I think they will have strong belief in what you're doing because they see the way that you're thinking about it and they can see the potential that this has, even if maybe that potential hasn't been met in the current moment when you're sharing that data.
And also, I believe it's about speaking the same language because when you are moving to member growth and user base growth or like connectedness to some specific metrics like user generated content or
Mhm.
number amount of reach and stuff, so you are already like moving a little bit away, even though it's still community metrics, you're moving more into like marketing metrics or maybe customer success metrics or maybe some kind of like maybe even product metrics. It depends, but you're still like becoming this multi teams communicator, and I feel like that's exactly what people need because like community itself is very fluffy and sometimes like yeah, it's sense of belonging, empathy, who cares. It's all about this, this now. I mean, like we care, community builders care, but overall, like other teams and leadership, they don't always care. They care sometimes, which is exactly amazing when you are being this translator. And you told me a very interesting thing about why are people coming back. It's something that like I have this personal example. So I host meetups for freelancers every month, and some people are keep coming back, but I never ask them why do they come back. And I have the same template that I post every month to invite people, the same email, blah blah. Everyone
Mhm.
knows what it is, but I actually never asked like why people are coming back. And it gave me a really good idea to ask them and then to also update this description and also the invitation message and speak in specific the language that people will tell me. So if they will tell me that I'm coming to meet friends, I will use like in the copy that, hey, come to meet friends. If they will tell me like I'm coming to have some fun time with other freelancers, I will use it like to come to have fun time with freelancers. Because if like five people have this feeling, most likely if other 500 too. Like it's a huge chance that if you're asking these five people, maybe others feel the same too. So yeah, it's a great thing. So thank you for sharing it with me. I will
Yeah,
definitely implement it already.
that's such a great point. I actually recently read This is Marketing by Seth Godin. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, but he really just talks about the minimum viable market. So whatever it is you're doing or selling or putting out there, it doesn't have to appeal to every single person. If you can just really nail down who you're trying to serve and then craft what you're building for who you're trying to serve, then you'll have that success. You'll be able to reach the critical mass that you need for it to be successful. And I think that's a really great point, and it's a great way to think about work in general. Like, what you're doing does not have to work for everyone. It will never work for everyone. And the more specific you can be in your messaging, in your approach, in your consideration, the better that will drive home for the people that it's meant for.
Yeah, we're still coming back to this intersection of community with marketing. And sometimes I really like these conversations when people are fighting. Hey, it's community. No, it's marketing. No, it's community. No, it's marketing. But
Not
like
even. It's
it's
really
intersected.
storytelling. It's
Exactly.
storytelling. It's really pulling together why people do what they do and appealing to what is important to them.
Coming back to the teams. So customer success, customer experience, you work with them. What are two, three other teams that you usually work with the most when you build a community?
So the product team is also a very important one. Also sales and pre-sales. And for us, I guess community customer success is quite integrated and community is run a bit cross-functionally anyway. So different people have different initiatives within our customer community and we all come together on this like larger strategy. And so it's really important that people see the purpose of community within the company, and the role of the customer community is quite clear so that they can understand how they really fit into the picture and they can understand, okay, like this is why this initiative makes sense here and why I should be participating and kind of be in the flywheel of what we're doing.
So customer success, it's clear. So we talked a lot about it. Product, it's also like you get your feedback from members, you put it into the product, and then it helps to grow the product itself and to make it better, or to maybe add some new features or to fix some bugs. And if we are talking about sales and pre-sales, like how community help those teams?
Yeah, so for us, we have webinars that are intended for everyone. So anyone in the universe that is interested in community and would like to connect with HighBright on that level, they can attend our webinars. And then we have more exclusive events that are specifically for the customer community that are people who are, customers of ours. And so it's important that the programming is actually aligned and that we can make sure that even if a customer attends a webinar, it's still relevant for them. And even if, well, yeah, I guess it doesn't work in the other way, but in that sense, just making sure that, yeah, everything is quite aligned and the messaging is clear and what we're offering and putting out there is quite clear. So that's how that intersects in terms of our customer community.
Yeah, you know why I asked? Because I hear a lot that community professionals are protecting their community from sales. And I'm like, how can you protect this? Like, you need to work together. You have to collaborate because sales brings the blood to the company. They brings money. That's exactly how all other teams can work and continue doing this. So, what is your personal relationship with sales?
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense. The sales team loves to have customer stories. They love to understand how customers are actively using our product today because that helps them to really make sure that they're selling to the right customers and that you can have this proof of concept to show them to be like, hey, like if you purchase our product, if you become a customer, this is what you can look forward to. These are the things that people are doing. And so there's no bad blood, if you will. Like it's really supposed to enhance, and we're all supposed to work together to deliver value for our customers and future customers. So yeah, it really makes sense, and I think it's really helpful to understand from sales like what they're hearing on the ground, also from people that are considering other tools. What are the ways that they're really evaluating us, and how can we make it evident that this is something that we offer, or there are customers that are already doing what they're thinking about doing.
If we are talking about upgrades or renewal or everything connected with money and sales, is there any metric, collaborative metric or something like that that you track from the community side, how it affects sales?
Nothing that comes top of mind, actually. Maybe there is something, but I'm not aware.
Yeah, I'm just asking because it's very interesting, to see exactly how. Because why I'm asking. There is the number one rule that I always tell to people, like if you don't know what are metrics to track, like how to prove your community value, etc., start with just adding to your CRM difference between community members and non-community members, and
Yeah,
then
of
just
course.
see all the business metrics, but just like in these two cohorts, like the easiest way to identify immediately what is the value of community. And then you are building on top. And, I really loved, I had a conversation with Ed Giansante, and he told that he hosts like small events, like dinners for C-level experts, professionals. And he told this interesting thing that sales are not allowed to join those dinners because they're building this one-to-one
Mm.
personal experience. But then he also acts like pre-sales. So he identifies what are people who ask him, like, oh, by the way, this persona thing, how can I become a customer or whatever? Or, oh, can you tell me more? So basically, he identifies who is ready to buy, and then he's bringing warm leads already to sales team, and then the rest is history. Then the sales team are doing their work. So
Makes
yeah,
so much sense. Yeah, you really want it to be a human dynamic and having kind of that filter of, hey, we've actually had a conversation. It sounds like you're genuinely interested in what we have to offer, and I'm going to connect you and put you in touch with the right person to make that happen. Like that sounds so reasonable to me and like the way that sales should kind of work.
Yeah, and how do you encourage people from other teams to work with the community? Because once again, they have other stuff to do and they have their tasks. So how do you ensure that they are helping, kind of helping you, but in a way that helps them too?
Yeah. So I don't know if I consider that a part of my mission to like recruit, but if I see that there is a real opportunity where, as you said, it is like a mutually beneficial thing where like, hey, like it would totally make sense for you if this could happen so that the customer can receive this kind of result, then of course I'm open and I'm approaching teams and I'm saying, hey, like look at what could happen here. And if there's room in the timing and like the scope of things, then everyone is really open to collaboration because we're all, working toward the same thing.
Yeah, and you are building community too, which is like,
Yeah.
people kind of understand. It's a little bit easier when you work in a company around community stuff because like everyone knows what it is and you don't actually have to explain how it works. You're just saying, hey, here is what we can get. Are you in? Yeah, sure, let's do it. And then you're good. I usually ask this question about how to get leadership buy-in, but I will not ask you this question because I believe that you have it already. So I'm curious, like, how's your tool stack looks like? Like, what is your ideal? What are the tools that you are using in your community journey?
Yeah, so I'm on the side of the infrastructure and really trying to build out something that's sustainable. So without me, another person can facilitate the same session and have that same quality result. And so I'm using a lot of our internal tools like Salesforce, like PlanHat, which is our CSP, and also Claude a lot recently to create some of these things, and also Canva. So that's been really helpful. Um, just kind of using those core tools to create the programs, measure the programs, and then kind of create that customer experience as well. Other things that I'm really exploring are using more automations with like make.com or Zapier and that kind of thing. Because sometimes with AI, it looks like it can automate a lot of things, but it actually is very heavy in terms of doing those things, and there are tools that are already quite built for it. So finding a way to have the balance of not kind of doing everything with AI and like really picking and choosing what makes sense is a part of the learning process and kind of iterating on a lot of the program work I'm doing.
I totally get you because I have some tasks that I'm doing myself that takes me like 5 minutes per day, and I can kind of automate it using AI or whatever. But then I was like, but it's just 5 minutes per day, yeah, and to automate, I need to spend like 2, 3 hours. Now I'll just stick to 5 minutes per day, and it's okay. It works for me. And you touched the topic of AI like Claude and also Make.com. It's a little bit AI-ish too, I believe, and also Canva. Yeah, of course. So how's AI helping you in your community journey?
So for me, AI again is really more so about the infrastructure. It's finding ways to work a bit smarter instead of harder and making sure to retain like the human element of what I'm doing. I don't want to create another version of myself to like do work. I really just want to make things a bit faster and kind of identify where AI can optimize work that I'm already doing. It's kind of like you don't want to hire an assistant before you understand the work that you're giving to your assistant. So it's the same concept with AI. And so for me, I like to do a lot of things manually because I'm also learning to use these tools. And I think it's important to know how it works before you just like delegate and automate too many things. And then I kind of move over to automating certain small tasks here and there. And then eventually I can have a whole workflow that's fully automated or a whole piece of what I'm doing that gets automated, but not completely delegated over to AI.
So give me a few examples of how exactly do you use those tools.
Yeah, so for the Peer Unlock program, we are curating the sessions, and it's important to me that we're using live customer data and making sure that it is informed on who should be attending what type of session. So we have customer calls that are happening with our account managers, and we also have live data that is existing within their platform as to how they're using the community. And so we can look at this information in the past 90 days and say, hey, because of these conversations that have been happening, because of the status of your community that we can see, we think it would be really great if you would attend this session because this directly speaks to the challenges that you're having, or actually, you have such a great use case and we want you to share this with other people. So that's how I'm using AI in terms of being able to identify the right customers and then maybe automating some invites with a personal touch that is coming directly from the words that have been used in certain contexts. So for me, I think that's a great way to not necessarily delegate everything to AI, but also use it for certain touch points where I'm able to identify the correct data and then use that to create a personalized approach. And then when it comes to reporting the data and getting it back into our systems, I've also created a workflow that enables me to send an automatic email, uh, get information back into PlanHat, back into Salesforce, and then also it's an app through a Slack channel so that people are alerted in real time. Hey, this session just happened. Here's the information relevant to your customer. And so I think for me, it's a way to yeah, really have this full circle approach and only have pieces of it kind of really delegated or fully automated through AI.
And I feel like you also care a lot about end clients, about the customers, because when you are sending personalized emails, you are not sending the same email to everyone. You identify specifically who will benefit the most out of it, and you invite only those people. And once again, we are currently bombarded with hundreds and thousands of notifications and email messages. And I believe that people must say thank you for that, for caring about their time and their inboxes, for sending something that they can specifically get value out of from. So, and yeah, on behalf of those people, thank you for doing this. Thank you for caring about us. And Whitney, I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit to our conversation. So the final question. What is one thing to do right away for someone struggling with identifying their community ROI?
Yeah, that's a really big question. And I think I recently participated in Gathering Design Sprints by Christina Hug. She runs Boarding Pass and the Community Council, and she's excellent. And we had one of these workshops where we kept asking each other why. We had a mission statement for what we were doing, and then we really wanted to get down to the bottom of it. So just keep asking why, and then see if it matches the purpose that you initially started with. And if you find that there's some kind of a misalignment, or you had a purpose statement when you began something and then you get to the end of it and you ask why, you're like, hey, did this actually measure up to what we had initially intended? Or is the output serving the main purpose that we started with? And I think those are ways to really give you some clarification and insight into whether or not it's meeting the purpose and really targeting the business objective that you initially started with. And so kind of having that reflection along the way can be helpful as well, just continuing to ask yourself why. And then also making sure that it's clear to you what is a community goal versus a business goal, and making sure those two things are linked, because sometimes it can be difficult to understand how they're different and to really like pull them apart. But the community goal should really be focused on what are the members getting out of this experience? And your business goal should be how does that, so the members' experience, impact what our business is doing and how we can do better for those customers. So it should be circular. It should be something that really feeds into each other, but they're not exactly the same. And if you can pull those two apart and make sure that there is a flywheel and then ask yourself why, then I think you have it. You completely get community ROI.
Now you reminded me of the quote from Ashley Gallman Williams on one of the previous episodes, and she told that your business success is your customer success. And when you have this in your mind, actually those goals are connected, because your business goal is to care about customers, and your community goal is to care about customers. And when they succeed, then they buy more and they invite more people, and then your business grows. So it's like very intersected. And unfortunately, not that many businesses understand this. And I hope,
It's nuanced. It's nuanced.
yeah, yeah. It's we can jump into another rabbit hole and talk about it for 1 more hour. And to keep the conversation going, name two people I should reach out to talk about community ROI.
Yeah, you did ask me this ahead of time, and I totally gave you the name of someone, but I don't think I have a second person. I thought of Justin Lee, who's working at Photo Room and doing community, so I think you should definitely reach out to him. He is also Paris-based, and I know Photo Room is doing great work, so I'm sure he'll have a lot to say.
I already messaged him, so let's keep see. I believe that he'll be a future guest sometime soon. And when you will have other people to send my way, please connect us. I would love to learn from their experience and to share their knowledge with all the community world. And
Of course,
last
sounds good.
but not least, what is one question about community ROI that I should have asked you but didn't?
This is a good question. It makes me think. I think you kind of covered all of the bases, but I would also be curious to dive into, not saying that I have all the answers, but I'd be curious to dive into what it looks like at the C-suite level when it comes to community, when it comes to business. How are they really talking to each other about it in terms of the CFO, the CRO, tons of acronyms, but CGO, so Customer Growth Officer, CCO, Chief Customer Officer, and how they're really tying this together to say, I see the value of community from these different perspectives. Like, I think that's also something that I would really love visibility on because I do have conversations, but at the same time, I don't have the same uh, day to day as people in the C-suite. And so for them, I'm sure they understand, but they also think about it from a slightly different lens.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I will definitely invite some C-level folks to have this conversation with and to get their business experience because once again, it's a little bit different, when you talk to folks of all the C X something O, they always
Yeah.
have their specific goal, and they see community as a tool to reach to their goal. Hopefully they see it as a tool because sometimes they just don't get what the hell is going on. But when they see it as a tool, that's exactly when you have the conversation going. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing this.
Awesome.
And
Thank you, Yuri.
and Whitney, thank you very much for this conversation. So first of all, you gave me already a great idea to ask some of previous participants, like why the hell do they come to all those events, and to also reuse a little bit their answers to get more people to bring value, and also for sharing your peer unlocked, no unlocked, peer unlock, pure unlock part, because once again I feel like it's the best moment when you connect people and make them talk to each other. That's what the community in essence, and you can digest, you can get some pieces of some signals from them to improve business standpoint, to put it to your customer success, to share it with your product team, to share it with your sales team. So it's amazing thing. I would definitely follow how it's going on, and I believe sometime later we can recap, come back to this conversation and like share how it works, exactly how it worked, like what are some metrics, what are some improvements during this program. So just stay in touch, and once again, thank you so much for sharing your experience so openly.
Thank you, Yuri, of course. I look forward to all of your other episodes as well. I'm going to check them out.
Please do. And yeah, see you in the community world. And thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about how the community can help you reach and overcome your business goals faster, let's connect on LinkedIn and talk about it. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.